own downfall.
You didn't believe your wife. You refused to see.
It's all
Your fault. You are a failure.
This was amazing. So last we left off with The Evil Within, I felt that it was a really awesome horror video game that had a couple of missteps, a couple of things I didn't quite like, a couple of things that just kind of stopped it from being a true great, but it had so much potential there. I loved the story, I loved the setting, the atmosphere. There was so much fun to be had with that first game. So obviously, I immediately dove into the next one, The Evil Within 2. Holy crap, I cannot begin to express how amazing of a sequel this game was.
My latest creation.
No!
Okay, so first off, if you're coming straight from the last game and you play none of the DLC, you are going to be lost. Do yourself a favor, play the DLC, or if it's too expensive or you just don't feel like playing any of the DLC, watch a YouTube recap of the DLC on YouTube. Alright, do yourself a favor, do that, because otherwise you will be 100% lost with this game. That being said, I felt that this game was a fitting conclusion to this duology of The Evil Within. Now, I'm hoping they might do a third one. I don't know if they're going to do more. I don't know if The Evil Within 2 was a bomb, but when you finish the game, it's like it's done. It's a fitting conclusion to the story that started with the first Evil Within, and I absolutely love that. But more on the story later. So, something really interesting new with this game is that you're now in this sort of open world system. You basically get to play around in this, I won't say it's your typical open world, but it's kind of like these very large maps that you have access to. There's a couple of them. A couple of very large areas, kind of like the size of a neighborhood. Alright? Real small neighborhood. You get access to like 3 of them and a couple of small maps along the way. And there's a few points in the game where you can bounce back and forth between them at your own leisure. And it's really a lot of fun. I absolutely loved playing around in these kind of semi-open worlds. Now, no, you can't go into every single building, but I mean, it wouldn't have been terribly hard to have done that if they had like another year of development on this. Easily, they could have had every single building you could go into, because you're honestly just making them open world for a small town. All right, I mean, there are open worlds for cities, and you could go into buildings. So I wouldn't have been surprised if they were able to get every building accessible in this open world. But I'm getting besides myself. The open world is great. It adds a lot of unpredictability to enemy encounters. Whereas in the first game, you kind of knew that on a certain set path, an enemy was going to pop up at a certain time. You have some jump scares, and if you play that game again, it's going to happen the same exact way. But with the open world, you have enemies on like patrol, moving around, and there's a lot of times you can have an unexpected encounter and it's not scripted. It's kind of like a better version of Resident Evil 2, even though Resident Evil 2 came out after this. And I criticized Resident Evil 2's AI system on Mr. X, but I felt Mr. X was just really super cheap. The AI system was brilliant. And so it feels like maybe Resident Evil might have taken some inspiration from Evil Within 2. I'm not sure. Now, something else that also gets improved from the first game is weapon and character upgrades. Now, in the first game, they were kind of in the same thing. Weapon upgrades, character upgrades, it was all just part of the upgrade tree. And this time around, not only have they been streamlined, but they've also been improved upon. And so, with weapon upgrades, each weapon, it's separate for each weapon, and it's also a little bit more streamlined. And you basically have these crafting tables where you can go and craft, upgrades for your weapons, improve the ammo, improve the fire rate, magazine size, and it's just a little bit better system than the first game. Like, now that I've played this game, I kind of never want to go back to the upgrade system of the first game, which is a good thing. And then separately, not part of the same thing anymore, is the character upgrades. This improves your combat abilities, stealth, stamina, health, and this is kind of like the first segment in the first game where you're in the Chair of Death. They bring back the Chair of Death, of course. That's the best name I have for it. But it comes back in a sort of interesting way, and the character and weapon upgrades are just refined, more streamlined. I absolutely love them. And then another thing is that on the crafting tables, there's this new crafting system that you can craft new ammo for your weapons, and you can also do this in the field, but if you do it in the field, it costs more. But this removes one of the issues I ran into with the first game, where there was a few times I had like 1 round left, and I had 3 enemies coming up to me, and there's like no ammo anywhere. And so this removes that situation where, yeah, you can risk spending a little bit more and actually have enough ammo to fire, but you'll run out of supplies. And there's all these supplies all over the open world map you can pick up, like pipes and all kinds of, nails, equipment, fuses, and all this helps craft weapon ammo for your weapons. Now, another thing I absolutely love about this game is that the stealth has been drastically improved in this game. Now, the first game, there was stealth, but it was non-existent, really. I rarely did stealth. The only time I did stealth was just hiding until I was ready to fight the enemies. The stealth wasn't the greatest, and thankfully this time around, they've drastically improved stealth. And it's a lot of fun. I surprisingly played this game mostly stealth, and there was a character continually telling me, I know stealth's all great, but eventually you are going to have to fight, so maybe you should upgrade your fight skills a little bit better. But I mean, no, it was really fun being able to stealth my way through the game without wasting ammo, and being able to save my ammo for the more serious moments, which was great and very enjoyable. Now, another really awesome thing is that this game is kind of like Silent Hill, where in its sequel, you get all new type of boss enemies. You don't get the same type of enemies over and over again. Case in point, like Halo, you're always going to go up against like a brute or a covenant, or you have certain kind of enemy expectations. In other games, like Resident Evil, yes, they do have some variations in Resident Evil, but you do have lickers, you have tyrants, you have kind of these expected enemies that you will see in a sequel. And in this, it felt very much like Silent Hill. Well, Silent Hill, in its first game, had different like enemies and even boss enemies compared to its second game and its third game and its fourth game. And so there were like these different enemies that you see every now and then. And Evil Within 2 does this. And there's a couple of like flashback moments where you'll see enemies from the first game. Most of the main headliner enemies are brand new enemy designs, and I absolutely love it. It gives the crew and the team making this game a chance to be very creative. It's not like, okay, can we make the Keeper look a little bit better? You know, it's more like, okay, we need to come up with something as creative as the Keeper from the first Evil Within. And so that I really enjoyed. Another thing I really enjoyed was the soundtrack. The soundtrack had some truly emotionally stunning pieces in the game. To the point where I was just thinking, wow, that is beautiful. In a horror video game with blood and guts. Like, just think about that for a second. But another neat thing are you get these side missions that are optional and you don't have to do them, but you get some really great rewards with these side missions. And you get access to some really great weapons with these side missions, and you really want to do them because the more prepared you are, the easier time you'll have. And that's another great aspect to this open world system that we're playing around with, is all these side missions that you can do. Now, one thing I did kind of mess up with is you have a radio that you can pull out and you can get like something saying, hey, there's a signal nearby. I didn't really catch on to how this worked until the end of the game, so there was a couple things I did miss, which sucks. But thankfully, there is a New Game Plus mode, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Now, in terms of the story is awesome, amazing, and exhilarating. The only downside to the story is that there's no kind of real setup for this game unless you play the DLC. If you play the DLC to the first one, then you'll be set up for this game. But if you're just playing the first game and then you jump right into the Evil Within 2, it's just like, I missed something. And that's honestly the only issue I have with the story. And it's not even that big of an issue because I have played the DLC and I have watched a couple of YouTube videos. If you're not interested in playing the DLC, watch a couple of YouTube videos that talk just about the first Evil Within and its DLC, because then that'll catch you up to all the little notes you might have missed and whatnot, and it'll get you up to speed with preparation for playing the Evil Within 2. But the story is a great sequel story. It doesn't feel like just a rehash of the first one. It feels like a new direction while still feeling familiar to the first game. And so it's kind of like how you see the sequel to Aliens was to Alien, or the way Terminator 2 was the sequel, the way the Terminator 2 sequel was to the original Terminator. They were like different enough to feel uniquely new, but they had enough familiar elements to make them part of the franchise. And the same thing with Evil Within 2. There's enough here that feels fresh and different, but there's enough similarities with the first one that it's like it feels like it belongs in the series, and I love that. And the story has incredible pacing. The only reason why it took me like 15 to 20 hours to complete this was because I was stopping and smelling the roses. I was looking around every nook and cranny for everything, and I still missed some stuff. And if I had just sped run through the story, this story probably would have been done in like 7 hours. That's how well paced it was. And then another thing, no spoilers, but I absolutely loved the final act of the game, like the final 2 chapters. Great writing, great pacing. The scene transitions are very inventive. I loved them, and just it worked so well. When the game's credits started rolling, I actually clapped. That's how satisfying this game was. I clapped, and I was the only person in the room. And another thing that's great about this game are the graphics. Graphically, this game is beautiful, and the Xbox One version really helps out with that, because on Xbox Series X, that's where I played this on, both auto HDR and frames per second boost are implemented. So you have a slick, smooth 60 frames per second gameplay run, and you also have high dynamic range implemented, and so you have some truly beautiful lighting in this game and some truly beautiful moments. I mean, there's some moments of like real grotesque nature that just like I said to myself, wow, that's beautiful. And then it's just like, am I okay? Am I like sick in the head? It's just like, oh no, the graphics just were done so well that they did a great job on this game. And there's some close-up facial animations that are just so incredible, especially on Sebastian. He has some really great facial animation and some great motion capture work done on him in this game. And then once you complete the game, there's a lot of great additional features. Like they unlock, when you complete the game, you unlock letterbox mode, which gives you that first game kind of feel with the letterboxing. And you unlock a bunch of new costumes. You unlock a new game plus mode where you can continue to upgrade your weapons and your character. And then this one's amazing. There's a first person mode. Now, you don't always get to see the gun in first person mode, but it brings the camera to first person mode, and when you go to aim, it brings the gun up, and it's just like a drastic new way of playing the game that will make it harder to do stealth, because first person stealth is always harder than third person stealth. And honestly, I'm looking forward to playing through this game again in first person mode. I have to admit. Yeah, this game, The Evil Within 2, was amazing. It was incredible. I absolutely love this game. I am not getting rid of this game. I want to see a sequel to this. If I don't get a sequel, that'll be fine, because the ending really felt like the perfect stopping point in terms of a series or a story. And it really feels like the second part to a two-part story with The Evil Within 1. This is, I would say, not only is the first Evil Within worth game, but you want to get it with The Evil Within 2. It's a great double chapter story, and I absolutely loved it. And honestly, I have to give it this. This was an incredible experience. This is an amazing game, and it's one of the best games I have played this year. This is a masterpiece. Well, that'll be it for today. My name's Christopher Connell, 11 Hour Reviews, and go out and get this game if you want to play an amazing horror masterpiece. I cannot stress that enough. Until next time.